Hello, everyone. David here. Welcome back to the DGR podcast. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I have a great guest for you. I have, maybe more importantly, a great Irishman on, or at least as importantly, I have Colin Griffin. Colin is a strength and conditioning coach. He works in the Santry Sports Surgery Clinic in Dublin, one of the best and most well-respected surgery and sports surgery and rehabilitation clinics in the world, I think. Colin is the lead foot and ankle rehab specialist up there, and he's also just finishing up his PhD in Achilles rehab. He's also an Olympian in race walking as well, so he has a lot of experience in a lot of different things. Super nice guy, and we chatted all things kind of calf and Achilles rehab today, assessment, calf and Achilles, biomechanics, return to sport, return to running, strength tests, strength training, for all of that stuff. I kind of said to Colin, like, okay, I won't, it's an informal chat. I usually just have a chat with someone, and I actually ended up, it's not an interview, and I ended up, or it's not a super interviewee style, and I ended up just like peppering him with questions. So I was actually coming off the call, I was like, oh, I really hope that I did him and his work justice there with my questions, because obviously when someone is doing their PhD and stuff, like, they have spent a lot of time thinking about this topic and put a lot of work into it. So I hope my questions were of a decent enough standard to do him justice and maybe get the best out of him. But some of them maybe were, some of them maybe weren't, but I learned a lot regardless. And if I learned a lot, then that usually means that other people will learn things too, because we usually have, me and my guests and the people who listen, hopefully we all have like similar questions in regards to what to do with this stuff in the foot, in the ankle, in the Achilles, in the calf. So I think there is honestly a ton to learn. I'm looking forward to seeing way more of Colin's work over the coming years. I think he's going to become or already is, like, a big name in the industry, and is going to become even more and more and more so. So I think you should keep an eye out, and any chance you get, you should try and connect with him or devour any of his work that is out there. So yeah, without further ado, here's Colin. And obviously, if you enjoyed the episode, maybe you can give it a share for us or something like that. I think we will both appreciate that. And I hope you really enjoy the episode. Colin, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, David. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, look, all good. Thanks. Now getting ready for Christmas as we speak, and trying to get PhD wrapped up. So yeah, busy times, but looking forward to a little break over Christmas, as I'm sure you do.
I was going to message you. I was going to email you saying you could push it back to January if you needed to. But then I said, once I had you, I'll like keep you in the diary. But
no, you did right.
Is the PhD done?
We're almost there now. Yeah, look, we have a final draft ready to go now. So it's just a small little bit of fine tuning, but yeah, the most was done now. So looking forward to getting that off now, and hopefully have the vibe in the next 8 to 10 weeks.
Good man, congrats.
Thank you.
How long of a process is that? Like, how long have you been working on that?
Yeah, I started in 2017, so it's been about 5.5 years. Obviously, COVID pushing us back a lot. You know, that I suppose, as most people who were doing research during that time. So and obviously managed to start a family during the process too. So all those things, look, it's just part of it. You know, you just have to roll with it, and you get a good period of time where you're really productive and get a lot done. You have other times then where priorities might change or shift a little bit. So you just have to sort of be flexible and, you know, take advantage when you have an opportunity to cover as much ground as you can. And then obviously, you know, still have to keep other balls in the air too at the same time.
Mm-hmm. No, I've a lot of respect for people who can pick a project of that size and be able to work on it, because you know it's going to take so long, and my attention span is not so good. So
mine isn't the best sometimes either, but you know, you
just committed to it and had to keep going. Exactly. Is there any little secrets or insights you can give, or not yet?
No, I mean, happy to talk about it. Like it's like we published a protocol paper for the main study in the thesis, which is a randomized controlled trial for a rehabilitation program for chronic mid-portion Achilles tendinopathy in a running population. So we had a protocol paper published a year and a half ago. So we have preliminary results from that. So basically, we were, I suppose, testing a program that we've put together that we kind of do. So based off doing 2 to 3 targeted strength sessions a week, not being dictated solely by pain, but trying to look at functional changes as well and hitting certain strength targets and use that to guide progression. To, you know, again, allowing for a maximal level of tolerable pain. And then the other group followed Silvernagel's protocol, which is research based and a good solid program, but it's more of a daily based program, and where progression is guided more so by pain. So yeah, look, to be the preliminary results. We haven't hit our full numbers yet, so we will keep that study going even after my PhD is finished, just to try and get good numbers and hopefully get a good publication. But there is a good difference, all right, in outcome measures with our intervention being a little bit better. But obviously, just the numbers of participants we've had so far wouldn't make it significant at the moment. And then we have another study done as well. So a test reliability and evaluating the biomechanical features of a single leg horizontal plyometric exercise. So something that hasn't really been investigated before. There's a lot of stuff out there in vertical plyometrics. So obviously horizontal is probably a little bit under researched. So hopefully we can contribute something to that. And then we did a test reliability for an ankle isokinetic test at 30 degrees a second, which hasn't been used that much over the years. A lot of people use 60 degrees a second or 90 degrees a second, which are faster speeds. And then we also did a reliability on a seated calf isometric test using force bits. Yeah, look, there's a few little strands to it, but with the main one being that the randomized controlled trial for Achilles tendinopathy rehab.
Mm-hmm. You must have learned a lot along the way. Is there any big things that you would have been doing before that you maybe have changed now, or any learnings that really became apparent as you went on?
Yeah, look, I suppose you go to the whole Dunning-Kruger curve, you know, so you realize what you don't know when you get stuck into something, mm-hmm. and you realize things aren't as black and white as you might have thought at the start. So, and look, I mean, there's still a few questions floating out there that my PhD won't answer, but definitely gives me a little bit more curiosity to explore things a bit further post PhD. Yeah, I mean, with tendinopathies, you know, we still, it's very much individual basis. Some of the biological and even psychological factors that drive Achilles tendinopathy and Achilles pain. And I suppose having to take things on a case-to-case basis and knowing how to assess and rule out, and then to be able to narrow down your focus. And, you know, a one-size-fits-all doesn't really work for everyone. So I suppose being a bit more aware and mindful of the little nuances that you might see from person to person. Even among a healthy athletic even among an athletic population, you know, there's still little differences, I suppose, in things might be driving their symptoms, or may have been a factor rather than just a simple load capacity mismatch. Yeah, and I suppose a bit more of an understanding of the role of the calf and the plantar flexors in performance, as well as you know, mitigating lower limb injury risk, and I suppose understanding the role of the calf muscles in certain tasks like a horizontal plyometric exercise and even during running, which has been done before. So I suppose trying to add a small bit more to that field.
With regards to one thing that you see on social media all the time related to what you just said is well, not just, I suppose the role is like in different phases of gait and different movements and stuff like that, but the big thing now is like, okay, soleus has to deal with X times body weight. Mm. What is the X? Because you see like 14, sometimes 12, 10, 8, all different things.
Yeah. I mean, at sub-max speeds, like the internal forces from the soleus is around, you know, close to 10 times body weight at about 7 meters per second, based on Tim Doran's paper back in 2012. And even at, say, slower, steady, you know, jogging speeds to kind of easy running speeds, it's still around, you know, 7-8 times body weight. It's just a big muscle with different compartments, and it's got a multi-pennate fiber arrangement, so it's designed to handle those big forces. It is predominantly type 1 fiber composition, so it's endurable. It can repeat that sort of high work output if it's obviously well conditioned to do that. So yeah, it is like for most tasks, like say jumping, whether it's vertical or horizontal, whether it's accelerating, whether it's running steady state or sub-max speeds, it is by far the biggest muscle force contributor of all the lower limb muscles. You know, sticks stand up by a mile compared to other muscles, even the gastrocs, you know, the vasti muscles, the quads, hamstrings, glutes. Not saying that the others are irrelevant, but just the soleus is by far the biggest contributor. So it definitely deserves a little bit more attention.
Mm-hmm. And it's working very hard in slower speed running, which makes it, I think, probably tricky to rehab, especially when someone has had calf or Achilles issues. Because I think, in my mind, with a hamstring, you can probably get someone running slow enough relatively soon. But then when you have calf issues, it's tricky, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think it's like an inverse. You almost have an inverse approach. So if you have a calf injury, it's the volume, and even if they're going slower, it's the volume that's going to get them, the duration. Whereas with a hamstring, it's the speed that's going to get you, because you're working the hamstrings close to full capacity when you go close to max speed. So, if you're a distance runner, you have a hamstring injury, you can probably get away with things that a sprinter can't get away with. Whereas if you're a sprinter, you can probably introduce, short sprints a little bit earlier, and you just got to make sure everything is in order before you start to add, volume and density to your work.
Mm-hmm. What if you're a sprinter with a calf injury?
Yeah, look, I mean, it depends, I suppose, on the type of calf injury too. So the grade of it and the classification of it and the type of tissue structure involved. So if it's a B or a C, so if it's a myotendinous junction, or if it's a pure tendinous tissue injury, it's going to be a little bit more trickier. Tendon tissue takes a lot longer to remodel. Mm-hmm. Even though functionally things might be good and pain might have resolved, but you still have to be mindful of the background healing that's going on for several months, and just not try to cut corners. And if you do cut corners for whether it's for an important game or a championship, or in track and field, if it's for an important championship, it's just important just to keep the guard up even after that, just to make sure that you complete the rehab and maybe keep some ongoing maintenance in there. Look, I'm not saying a calf injury is ideal for a sprinter, but it's just they can probably get back training a little bit quicker and be able to do something, maybe work around a little bit better maybe than a distance runner might. Up to a certain point, obviously. I had a conversation with Jonas Stodio before on the podcast, actually, and I had been kind of this mindset for a long time around, like, get people up to intense plyometric type movements. If it's return to sport, let's not say I don't really work with too many sprinters, but just GA players or whatever, soccer players, anything like that. And when my kind of bias was, when they're ready to return to running, bring them in at 70%, 75%, bring them in nice and fast. And I've done a lot of plyometrics, but now the more I think about with calf injuries, maybe I'm missing more of the actually slower plodding running, which might actually be conditioning the calf. But for a hamstring, I don't know, maybe I'm confusing myself, but do you think that slower running is important, or would you spend maybe more time on the plyometric side of things, or both maybe? A bit of both, yeah. I think for a field sport player, they probably need a little bit of exposure to volume, because it's when they're running when the risk of re-injury happens, when they're still rehabbing. So yeah, I think a little bit of exposure to volume for field sport players, and an appropriate volume, not it's not the more the better, but an appropriate amount for an appropriate amount of time. And maybe to a certain degree for a sprinter, doing some of their like tempo type intervals, like their 200s or their 250s or 300s, just to have a little bit of volume built up at a moderate intensity. And so they got that little bit of conditioning there as well. I mean, just to give you an example of the hamstring, and I've used this myself, like I was 3 years ago, I had a grade 2B hamstring bicep fem strain 4 weeks before marathon. And I probably missed about 2 days running, and I was able to manage it over a 2 week period, or 2.5 week period, and I was actually pain-free week out from the race. But if I was a sprinter, I know I wouldn't have got away with that. It would have been probably a 4 to 6 week rehab, time frame, where I was able to manage it quite well in 2.5 to 3 weeks, just given the demands of the sport, and knowing that I wasn't going to be working the hamstring to full capacity in training. Obviously, from a long runs would, obviously, when you get close to toward the end of it. So that was one example, I suppose, how I was able to work around that, just given the nature of my event. Whereas if that was a calf strain, I probably would have been a bit more caught out in terms of trying to get myself race ready in time, given the different demands in the calf for endurance running.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk us through your assessment a little bit, or you can pick in terms of, it doesn't even have to be a specific injury or issue. Let's just talk about like lower leg. It could be calf, Achilles, but what should people be looking out for?
Yeah, so I suppose I might do a very quick clinical assessment. See how they hop, just get a visual of how they hop. Are they do a single leg hop, maybe go for 10 hops? Do they rely on a lot of knee flexion to get off the ground, or are they able to spring off the ankle? Are they quite toey and a bit kind of soft on contact, or are they able to dorsiflex and get some pre-tension before they hit the ground and be more flat-footed? Is there a difference, obviously, between left and right, or injured versus uninjured limb? And then I'd maybe just get them to do a couple of slow heel raises and just get an eyeball of calf muscle tone and any signs of atrophy. And sometimes you might see some little differences, maybe a bit of atrophy to the medial gastroc or even the lateral gastroc. Muscle, obviously, you can't really eyeball the soleus properly. You need your ultrasound for that. And then see how they go about doing a single leg calf raise. Just get them to do a single leg calf raise without any cue. Just see, do they, lock the foot and push through the first MTP joint, or do they tend to spill out and roll off the outside of the foot? Do they internally or externally rotate the foot? All those little things. And then I might correct them and get them to do it again. And then see how many good calf raises they can do off a tempo of like 1 second up, 1 second down. So when they start to lose tempo, or they start to bend the knee or lose control of the rear foot, I'll stop them and see how many reps they get to that. But 30 being a good number for a fit, young, sort of fit athletic person. And then if there's anything more kind of foot or ankle related, I might maybe just get a measure of inversion or an eversion strength with a handheld dynamometer, and maybe a great toe flexion as well, to get a sort of a ballpark measure of foot intrinsic strength. And then in terms of more objective assessments, we would normally do an ankle isokinetic test on most people with a lower limb injury. So lying face down, straight leg at a speed of 30 degrees a second. And we can measure peak torque from the calves and the tibants or the dorsiflexors. And then we can measure torque at different angles. So we can see what the torque is like at 10 degrees dorsiflexion, at long muscle 10 unit lengths, and at 20 degrees plantar flexion. And that can give us some useful information. So the peaks could be fairly symmetrical, but there might be some big differences in either inner or outer range joint angles. And then in some cases, if it's more calf related or even Achilles, we'll do a seated calf ISO as well and just get a measure of this soleus force capacity. And then we'll do our hop test. So maybe a double leg drop jump and a single leg drop jump. And in some cases, then maybe a horizontal plyometric test. And then, I suppose, finally as well, we maybe just look at the running mechanics and see if anything there that might stand out, that might be worth tweaking or fine tuning a little bit. Are they long on the ground? Are they ploddy, or are they springy, or are they light, or do they overstride and spend a long time on the ground, a lot of braking forces? Are they kind of backside mechanics dominant, or have they got good frontside mechanics? So those are the things.
Just on the calf raise, because there's actually loads I could ask you about all that stuff. Is that done barefoot?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that done off a step?
No, I just do it at ground level first. Just a ground level first against the wall. Not just doing enough to balance against the wall, rather leaning into the wall and just seeing how they do the calf raise first, how they load through the foot. Do they load to the first ray, or do they as it spill out to the outside of the foot? And does the heel kind of end up spinning back in, or does it? I try to cue them to. Well, see how they do it first. When they do, then get to do it again and cue them. I try to keep the heel sort of centered behind their second, third toe, have like a tripod sort of foot sensation, and then go from there.
Okay. And then toes, are you worried about like toes like gripping into the floor or staying longer or anything like that?
I'd look for little things like that too. Yeah. So they might rely on, the toe flexors to make up for the calves can too by gripping, or what they might do when the heel comes down, they might lift the toe again to make up for something. And that might indicate they might be lacking in, almost the opposite, maybe lacking in toe flexor strength, flexor lucis longus, maybe some of the intrinsics across the big toe joint. And then I might look and see, well, are they weak in great toe flexion, whether I test them manually or with the handheld dyno.
Mm-hmm. And
so
then,
just trying to build a profile of them, and then see what's good, what's missing, and what's relevant, and then I suppose have a focused rehab plan based off that.
Yeah. And say someone looks, say it looks okay, but they get 12 calf raises and 30 is like where we should be aiming for. Are you then, how are you training that? Are you let's just presume that's the only measurement that someone in clinic could get.
Yeah.
And you just say, okay, I'm going to address this weakness. How are you working towards that or programming it? Are you just saying, okay, we're going to aim for as many reps as we can 3 or 4 days a week? Are we going to add load? Yeah. Are we going to add a step, or what are we going to do?
Yeah, if they're starting to burn out after 12 calf raises, you're working with a low baseline. So I'd be a bit more gradual then about progressing. Well, not like I'd progress, but I'd be a bit more conservative starting off. So it could be something like, it's still when I'm trying to clock up a good bit of volume. So as X amount of calf raises, it could still be 30 or 40, but in maybe multiple sets of that. So it might be like 5 sets of 8, 4 sets of 10, 4 sets of 12, do left, do right, take 30 seconds, go again. So maybe a bit more endurance based, build capacity first, and then add weight then and progress onto that. Mm-hmm. In some cases, I might then maybe work both ends of the spectrum, still work on the top end. So try to add weight and maybe do something a little bit heavier. And at the end, then maybe having like a block of endurance or, type set, or maybe do it in the form of a circuit. do single leg calf raises, do seated calf raises, and then finish off with double leg calf raises, and then take a break, and then go back and do it again. So it depends on the athlete, what their sport is, what their background is, where they're at, and I suppose what's the best pathway to take, I think, where they need to be.
Would your guess be, I know you can't presume anything, but would your guess be that person would be pretty weak at a seated calf raise as well then?
A lot of the time, yes. Yeah. So that's why I'll test everything or whatever I can just to make sure I don't miss something. But it's certainly getting to do, if I get someone to a seated calf raise, put about half their body weight on their knee. So if they're a 60 kilo person, put a 30 kilo kettlebell on the knee. And if they're getting tired, if they're working hard after 10 or 12 reps, well then definitely soleus is not where it needs to be. So I would be hitting that as well.
I saw a tweet recently, just as which no good sentence starts with that, but it was something like, I don't want to get it wrong now. It was something like a seated calf raise is not a better soleus exercise. It's just a worse gastroc exercise. There's been a few little conversations about that now, to put it mildly. But look, when you do a straight leg calf raise, you're getting everything. You are getting the soleus. But I suppose my rationale is you may not work. You've got 3 calf muscles, even the soleus. You can almost argue you've got nearly 4 muscles within that muscle because they've got 4 different compartments. You got tendon tissue surrounding it, and you got tendon tissue at the middle of it that splits the compartments. So it's hard to say that we don't. Look, we've got a lot of blind spots too. We don't know everything, but it's hard to say that a straight leg calf raise works everything, the whole muscle uniformly. So I think a little bit of variation is no harm and maybe beneficial, and you'll certainly do no harm. And I suppose just try to cover all bases. So when you do a seated calf raise, obviously when the gastrocs cross the knee joint, so when you bend the knee, that's going to reduce their force output, but the soleus doesn't cross the knee joint, so it's going to produce this maximal force regardless. So you're getting more of a isolated measure, and I suppose the soleus has nowhere to hide, and you may work different parts of the muscle maybe that you mightn't quite get in a straight leg calf raise, and particularly where you have shear. So you've got there's a good paper back from a Danish group where they compare the level of shear between straight leg and a calf raise. So when you do a straight leg calf raise, you get more shear towards the gastrocs, so more of a posterior shear. When you do a bent knee calf raise, you get more of an anterior shear towards the soleus. And particularly when you're dealing with a soleus strain where you've got tendon tissue involvement, getting a little bit of strain on the aponeurosis can have like a mechanist transduction effect where you can stimulate a good sort of repair response. So I think it's just a bit of variation, covering what you can that you think might be relevant. And as I said, no one ever died from a seated calf raise. But look, not that we know of. That we know of.
But if I don't feel need to do it, I won't do it. Like if someone can get enough of a straight leg calf raise and their time is precious, we'll go with that. But if we need to just make sure we're covering everything, or if I'm not sure, and if I've got a blind spot and I say, look, I may as well just try and throw this at it as well, just to make sure that we're not missing anything, I'll add it in. But also come back to, I suppose, the role of the calf muscles in running mechanics. During acceleration, during jumping, and even running, the timing of peak force activation is different between the soleus and the gastrocs. So the soleus peak force activation is around mid-stance. The peak force activation with the gastrocs is kind of towards just before toe off. So the soleus does have to sort of have a little bit of independence. And there's a good study as well back, I think it was a French study where they looked, again, EMG is not as perfect, but they looked at the EMG activity of the lower limb muscles when you're looking at different percentage of body weight on an automatic treadmill. And the deactivation of the soleus mirrored the deactivation of the vasti muscles when at around 60 and 80% body weight, whereas the gastrocs were affected differently. So that tells me that the soleus has some independence from the gastrocs and can have a closer relationship when you're trying to support against gravity. Has a closer relationship with the vasti muscles. The
gastroc would have, correct me if I'm wrong now, higher levels of pre-activation. Is that right?
I suppose it depends what you do before you hit the ground. So I think if you're hopping or if you're sprinting and you have active dorsiflexion, you're getting length on the muscle tendon unit, and you're getting area recruitment of certainly the gastroc muscles anyway. And I mean, I can't say you get more, it'd be more so than the soleus. I think if you've got any length on the muscle tendon unit, you're getting area recruitment of that muscle or better pre-activation of it.
Okay. But the soleus then is much stronger.
It's a bigger force producer. Yeah.
Okay. Just in my mind, I'm like, which my mind is a mess, but is like I would have always looked at it as the gastroc can contract faster, and then the soleus needs time to build tension.
You're right. No, you're right. Because as I said, the soleus can. So if you're familiar with, I suppose, tissue mechanics, you got your force length relationship, you got your force velocity relationship. So the soleus can adjust to stay in its optimal region of the force velocity curve. So it's able to stay in that sort of close to isometric region better, whereas a gastroc has a very narrow region to do that. And when you're doing fast contractions, it will sort of miss that region. And it can fatigue that a little bit quicker. And in some people, of the gastroc, on average, it can be more closer to 50-50, type 1, type 2 muscle fiber type. And in sprinters, they probably are more fast twitch dominant in the gastroc muscles. So yeah, there is probably slight differences there.
Mm-hmm. That's
but obviously can vary from person to person. Yeah.
I know we're bouncing around, but just back to I know I'm going to ask you a question that is a terrible question that you probably won't want to answer, but if you can only choose, but I'm allowed to ask these questions anyway. So, if back to the tweet debate kind of thing, if you could only use one calf raise, a standing or a seated one, you're not allowed to say it depends or whatever. Yeah. Or for everyone, which one would you pick?
That's standing.
Okay.
You cover everything, so yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think it is helpful to hear someone like you say something like that for people who are not necessarily, who just want to get a bit of everything in their training. So that is very helpful. And
look, I think just people have maybe over the years, inadvertently maybe just misinterpreted things, and there's almost like a myth or a belief or misconception that you can only work the soleus doing a bent knee or a seated calf raise, which isn't true. You can work it. I feel myself, my good instinct is you can work it a little bit differently and work different parts of the muscle or stress different parts of the muscle with a seated calf raise that you mightn't quite get standing. But in my case, if someone has a soleus strain, I'll definitely throw the kitchen sink at it. If someone's calf is weak and the soleus is weak, so if I test them straight leg and bent knee, and even the bent knee is quite weak, I'll throw a seated calf raise at it. Mm-hmm. I mean, do we make the same argument about hamstrings? You getting all your hamstrings, you do a deadlift, but if does anyone argue against doing Nordic or a glute ham raise or anything else to add an extra stimulus to the hamstring? I don't hear the same debates about that. So yeah,
no, you're right. It makes sense to do your RDLs and your Nordics and all your different stuff. So
it's just context is key. It's just getting your reasoning and your logic in order. And then you can do whatever you feel is right.
And assessment wise, if someone didn't have access to any force plates or anything like that, obviously that standing calf raise with the metronome or one up, one down or whatever is good. Anything else?
Look, I think if you have a leg press, you can get a ballpark measure. So see how much you can hold for 5 or 6 seconds. You get a rough measure of isometric calf strength. So if you have a horizontal leg press, if you're able to hold twice your body weight in one leg for 6 seconds without dropping into too much dorsiflexion, if you can hold a mid-range plantar flexus angle or at least hold a neutral ankle position with the ball of the foot on the plate, that's a good measure of calf strength, isometric strength. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a Smith machine, see what you can hold as well. So obviously you got your own body weight as well. So if you can, hold maybe 1.5 times your body weight or that on for 6 seconds, that'd be a good measure. Mm-hmm. And then similar, as I mentioned there, with a seated calf raise. And again, this is purely arbitrary, but if you can put half or 2/3 your body weight on your knee and do more than 20-25 reps, to me, just from a bit of clinical experience, that's probably a good measure of soleus endurance capacity.
Mm-hmm. Are you in the seated one? Are you using a step there, and are you in much, or what amount of dorsiflexion would you put someone in?
As much as I can, yeah. So you mean the isometric one, the force plate?
No, just if I'm doing a seated, doing a seated calf raise.
Either way, I do try and start from dorsiflexion. So, so at least 10 degrees or 15 degrees dorsiflexion. And that's where soleus, between 10 and 20, that's where soleus force capacity is kind of maximized, where you've got longer tissue length. Mm-hmm. And even as it's fun, it's even when someone comes in as a sore Achilles, for example, and even if it's an insertional Achilles tendinopathy where the dorsiflexion is going to be at a bit more compressive loads, they can still tolerate a seated calf raise loading into dorsiflexion when they can't do it standing. So it's just a nice way to kind of work around it as well. If there's a limiting factor, they can still, because you've only got maybe one muscle that's doing most of the work in that seated position as opposed to all 3 muscles.
Mm-hmm. Why can you explain why they can tolerate it? Is there less compression in the seated position?
Yeah, obviously you might have the same tension from the gastrocs and in a seat as you would standing. So you've less of a pull on the tendon. Obviously you got those three muscles that fuse to form the Achilles tendon, and they kind of crisscross around each other and they rotate before they insert at the heel. So if you're taking away tension, some of that tension away from two of those muscles, it might be more tolerable for some people. Who might be sore loading into dorsiflexion standing.
Hey guys, David here. Just a very quick break from the show. Just wanted to remind you, DGR Interactive is there, our members only platform. We have 830 coaches and therapists on there learning with us every week. The videos are only about 10 minutes long, very short and sharp, practical information to teach you about movement, biomechanics, rehab, strength training, assessment, all of those things. If you're a movement professional, I think you'll love it. Some people have said it's the best biomechanics education platform in the world. Mostly I have said that, but other people have said it as well. So jump on. The link is in the show notes. DGR Interactive. Okay, interesting. You know what the standing calf is for someone with an insertional? Would you? I think I asked Peter Maliaris something similar, but would you try and slowly work them into more dorsiflexion, or would you just be happy keeping them and just building more and more strength, or does it very much depend?
Yeah, look, if they're an athletic person, you want to be able to get to the point where they can handle that dorsiflexion and those compressive loads again. So it's just trying to what's the best way to get them there. So if they're really sore and sensitive, I'd keep them in a range. So keep them doing maybe isometrics. Start them off with isometrics in a plantar flex position. So up on two and hold on one, and then maybe if they're really sore, use the uninjured leg to come out of it again. And then I might just do normal sort of concentric eccentric heel raises, but again, starting from neutral. Or if they're really sore, maybe just put a heel wedge under them and just again work to inner range in a sort of an isotonic contraction type. And then when they can, then maybe go like full concentric eccentric in neutral, and then when they can, add a block and then load them into dorsiflexion. So it's just you want to make sure they're fairly calm before you load them into dorsiflexion, so that there's no going back then once you do.
Yeah. It makes sense to try at least because, well, to me, because they're going to be there when they're playing sport or something like that.
Of course, yeah. It's just finding the right entry point, that doesn't annoy the tendon too much, or the insertion, or obviously if they've got a Haglund's deformity or a retrocalcaneal bursitis, that adds an extra layer as an extra challenge too. So, so just not to annoy things too much until it's a bit more settled.
Would you look at foot mobility, for want of a better term, and especially like rear foot movement for those type of people and midfoot movement?
Yeah, I'd certainly try and just build a profile of them, just so some can be like obviously you got your cavus and your planus type of foot types. You can have like a stiff cavus foot where they just stay in supination the whole time, and they can't unlock the foot. And if that's still like in both sides, I don't know. I don't try to exhaust too much time trying to change that, because I think you're just not going to get as much for the time and effort putting in, and the small, maybe if even any gains you want to get out of it. I'm not sure is the best use of time if you're having to prioritize. If they've got a flexible cavus foot where they can unlock, well, then you've got a bit more you can probably work with. And then on the flip side, if they're a pure flat foot, I definitely try and hit their foot intrinsics and foot strength and that, just to try and support them that way as well. So yeah, I would definitely take that into account when I'm rehabbing.
Yeah, I found some benefit with the insertional people. Again, like this is all anecdotal, obviously, but just with working on that heel, because I do see a lot of them have like a very, I would call it like a posterior tilted calcaneus. It's really tucked under, and then a very high arch, or not necessarily high, but like a very stiff midfoot. And I found some benefit in actually getting them bones opening up. But some people, you're right, like some people, it just won't change, or it won't change very much at all. Yeah, it really.
Oh, look, if you can, I think well and good. It's. I suppose I'm just trying to weigh up what's the best use of my time here. When you've got a certain amount of time with a patient, and what's the priorities, and but.
And it's usually for me, it's usually those type of people that I'm doing that with have spent 2 years doing calf work. You know, they're it's obvious that they're very strong there. They've done
a
lot of work there, and then they're usually coming to me to try. And so like I have that bit of buy-in for them to work on that bit of foot stuff because they're already worked on, and I have seen really good changes with that. But then sometimes I wonder if it's just like they're getting the knee rocking forward and back and getting the arch moving, like they're still getting a nice load on the soleus, and there's maybe a little bit of a rotational component there because we're encouraging some pronation. So I don't want to put my eggs in the basket of saying it's the foot movement that's changing it rather than whatever else that could be going on.
No, but I think that might influence, it might help to add some variation to how the tissue is loaded, or vary the loading patterns around the different muscles. Because if you've got a rigid foot and the same tissue gets stressed over and over again the same way, you know, whereas if you can get a little bit more flexibility in the foot, you know, you can kind of vary where the site of stress, I suppose, or so the same tissue isn't taking the same load the same way the whole time. So no, I think there's something in that.
And in the same regard, then someone asked me this question recently with regards to say a calf raise and then or a straight knee one, standing one, off a step, and they said, what would you want to see the foot doing, and would you maybe encourage pronation as they went down into the eccentric, down into the bottom position? And my answer was not necessarily no. I would like to see a bit of rear foot, like kind of inversion or a little bit of supination towards the top, and then maybe just more neutral as they go down. What would you think there?
Exactly like that, yeah. So that's when I start off. I normally do start off doing like normal calf raises, even without the step first, just from the ground with the shoes off, just to try and get those foot mechanics right. You know, get them pushing through the first ray and locking the foot, and getting that supination as they lift. And when you're doing that as well, you're getting you're training the foot, you get the foot and things involved, and you're also getting good activation of the tib post and the peroneals as they're acting like a stirrup to try and control the foot as well. So yeah, no, I definitely be encouraging you know, supination at the top and just back to neutral at the bottom, and then especially when they jump up the step, just whatever. Like I normally just use a block maybe that's where they might drop into maybe 10-15 degrees dorsiflexion, so let the heel touch the ground softly and then back up again. And from an Achilles point of view, you're going to get more force through the tendon in those dorsiflex position if you're pushing out of it.
What do you think of a wedge? So like a squat ramp or a little wedge or something like that, where they can do their calf raise, the eccentric portion, so the toes are actually staying long rather than be coming off the edge of a step, and they're kind of almost, the toes, you see them flexing into the step a little bit as the heel drops down. What do you think they are, or does it matter?
No, I like the idea of doing that. It's not something unless someone is really kind of, you know, clawing their toes. I do like to try and keep the toes long, and you will, even if they are trying to claw the ground, if they can do it with their toes long, they're going to really kind of work the foot intrinsics a bit more. So yeah, I think no harm.
Okay. I'm really peppering questions at you. Sorry. I was going to ask something else there. If someone was dropping into like a decent amount of pronation, let's say, or kind of eversion as they drop down in that eccentric portion of the calf raise, are you thinking, is there like a certain thing that you're thinking, okay, they have a bit of weak, or might have a little bit of weakness in a certain part of the muscle? Or is it like, okay, let's presume you've cued them, but they just keep doing it. So like, what are you thinking is weak there? All right.
I would say the foot. I think the foot. Yeah. So and tib post and the sort of the main foot intrinsics on the medial side. So definitely maybe be certainly assess foot strength and see is it a factor, is it relevant, is their output lower than you'd like them to be, and then definitely add some foot strength in there as well, and then try to bring that back into your movement and see can they control it better then. Okay. So I suppose just try to unpack and see what the limit factor is, and I would suspect in that case it'd be the foot. So I'd assess toe flexor strength and maybe foot inversion strength. And if that's the case, then add some tib post, or maybe just when you're doing the calf raise, you know, and again I get a nice little bit of carryover, maybe just adding some e-stim to it. Put your pads on the medial arch and try and get a bit of activation of the foot muscles or stimulation to them. And maybe put a band around the foot to try and activate tib posts. So bring it into the movement, you know. So yeah, I think you can work around it that way as well.
That's really interesting. Foot strength stuff. Is there any kind of easy wins that you'd be thinking there? Yeah, no, go on.
When you say easy,
so like what type of stuff would you use with someone? What type of exercises?
Oh, it's an exercise, yeah. No, you're grand. Simple, like just standing, weight bearing on one leg and foot in a block with the first MTP joint on the block and then the big toe hanging off, and just put a band around their big toe at a slight angle, so they're kind of pulled vertical and slightly anterior from that, and then trying to resist against that. So just curling the toe down, trying to cue a straight toe as they curl down, and then let the toe come all the way up. So I kind of cue them to wave at the wall in front of them. So that would be kind of one of the main simple sort of go-tos for foot intrinsics.
Is that a straight knee?
Straight knee, yeah.
And so they're standing on a block, straight knee, hands against the wall or something for balance.
Yeah, or if they're on what I often do is if they're in a gym, just wrap the band around the barbell, have the barbell down about hip level, wrap the band, strong TheraBand or one of your strength bands around that, and then have the block back a little bit, so they're kind of standing a little bit away from it, so the band is at an angle, and then just curl push the toe down with a straight toe as best they can. It will curve. You're trying to delay that as long as possible, and let the toe come up straight. So try and cue them to have a long straight toe at the top. So let the big toe come to dorsiflexion. And they should get a good burn on the arch, on the medial arch doing that, and even around the first MTP joint. Maybe using the slider and doing some like short foot exercises and try and get a good burn in the arch, doing some toe spreads. And then maybe doing some like core to heel raise holds with a bit of perturbation from a band, trying to balance on one leg, which is a bit more of an advanced progression. But when they get to that point and they can do it quite well with weight and everything else, they're in a good place. Yeah. And then I said sometimes I might just use some e-stim machine as well, just to get some extra stimulation and maybe bring it into some of those sort of dynamic movements or balancing movements.
Okay, awesome. That's really good. I hadn't seen the toe one in standing before, so that's definitely something.
It's a very simple, because I suppose we see a lot of maybe non-athletic people with plantar fascia pain or plantar fasciopathy. So you're looking for a very, very simple exercise they can do at home. So use the TheraBand, wrap around the banister of the stairs, and that's when you can do anywhere and get some good carryover from it. And if you want to really sort of maybe start off with the heel flat on the ground, and if you want to really challenge the foot intrinsics, maybe do it in a slight heel raise position, add plantar flexion to it. Yeah,
because I've done some of the toe stuff. I usually do it more even if I'm just isolating the big toe, I would do it like in a seated position. But actually, that sounds way better.
Yeah, just bring some anti-gravity into it as well. Like so, yeah. When the weight bearing, and yeah, because we know from some of the work in Australia in Luke Kelly's, some of his work, when they've looked at, I suppose, the timing of foot intrinsic muscle recruitment, is that sort of toe off position when you're in a heel raise position. That's where they're maximally activated, more so than mid stance. You know, their biggest role probably is more so to lock the foot for toe off, as opposed to supporting the arch during mid stance. So that's, I suppose, my principle behind.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah,
love it. Plyometric wise, is there somewhere you would start with someone, then again, like just any kind of a lower limb, calf, Achilles tendinopathy, I'll leave you choose, or you can just keep it broad if you want. But is there a progression you're looking for from someone before you would return them to slower running or anything like that, or things that you would usually want to take off?
Yeah, I mean, at least be able to tolerate it and be reasonably confident doing double leg hops, like double leg pogo hops. So maybe start with that. And if they're not perfect doing them, I'd maybe spend time just improving those, making them smoother on the ground, getting a good bounce, trying to spring off the ankle. If they're quite good at that and they're able to tolerate single leg hops and they're reasonably sound at that, I'll start them with that. So just again trying to find the right entry point. But yeah, like I suppose my basic sequence would be like double leg pogos in place, and then going forwards, backwards, side. So like your just rudiment series, and then do a single leg. So build a little bit of capacity, but just more from a skill point of view and capacity point of view, rather than going all out When they're tolerable to that, then maybe add more intensity, maybe bring in drop jumps, hurdle hops, maybe do the pogos more maximum effort, really trying to get maximize air time, shorten contact time, double leg, single leg. And it's the drop jumps, mini hurdle, rebounds or hops, and then maybe doing more bounds or hops for distance. That'd be sort of like a broad overview of how it of my sort of plyometric pathway.
Mm-hmm.
Borrowing a little bit from who people have influenced me over the years.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
As we all do.
Of course. And then gait wise, what would, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but what would get you to start to think, okay, I need to start looking at someone's gait here? Like we've gone through a lot of steps, and actually they returned back to running. They had a flare up, but it didn't seem like there was a huge amount of load involved, or in theory they should have been able to handle that. Is that where you're starting to think, okay, I need to have a look at actually what way they're actually running here?
Yeah, I generally look at it anyway. If they're a running based athlete, whatever sport they are, like I definitely look at the running and just get a complete profile of them, how they move and what their strength like is and reactive strength like as well. So I just look at the main features in sagittal and frontal planes. So sagittal plane, just what's their angles like when they hit the ground, do they land with a vertical shin, foot not too far in front of center mass, are they fairly upright through the torso, and what's their control like their mid stance? Do they really drop into like a more flexed angles, and they spend a long time on the ground, and do they get good flight time then when they push off? And then frontal plane, then just look at maybe from the hips down, do they have contralateral hip drop? Do they have poor control of valgus? Do they have poor control of rear foot eversion? And then, look at that and then see, does it match up to some other assessments? And then if it's poor control of rear foot eversion, we'll then be looking at ankle stiffness and foot strength and calf strength as well. And trying to work through those.
There's a lot.
That's a broad overview. Yeah. The main things I'd be looking at.
Yeah.
And I only change what's, because again, when you interfere with an experienced runner's gait, that there's a cost to that, and you have to sort of weigh up, is it worth it?
Yeah.
So sometimes I might just leave well enough alone if I don't feel it's relevant. But if some of them are working, I suppose, on the extremes or outside of just either turn the bandwidth that they can probably get away with, I'd probably try to bring them back a little bit, give them a little bit of room for error.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's textbook perfect, but there's, I suppose, if there's broad features you kind of want people to kind of be within, and I suppose just how much they can get away with.
Mm-hmm. What about someone who's in season, Colin, with an Achilles, like a nasty enough Achilles tendinopathy, and it feels like you can't really change how much load they're doing on a given week?
Yeah.
Any clinical pearls for me on that one?
Yeah, tricky. I've actually had some good experiences like with track athletes in season who've had a flare up and maybe managed that quite well. Now, one or two have had to start with a few races, but they're still able to have a summer season. But had a few tricky ones with some particularly club Gaelic football players, where it was pretty much you into county season, and then when club season started, it was pretty much all go like. And that's, I suppose, those who were managing Achilles tendinopathy before that, it was a perfect storm. And how when you're playing games and you're just trying to manage it from one game to the next and trying to cut corners in training so you're ready for the next game, it's not ideal. From the tendon point of view. You're just kind of digging yourself deeper into a hole. So ideally you want to get to the point where even if you have a history of Achilles tendinopathy, you have a maintenance program in place that'll get you to in season. You're able to keep the tendon and calf loading topped up just enough, to give it that stimulus without overcooking things. And maybe you might need to, which is hard in a team environment, to have more modified ring loads, or in an individual sport like athletics, you can, you've got the scope then to be flexible with your training days and the timing of some of your sessions.
Yeah.
So I think the sport is probably key here, and what the athlete baseline is and their history.
Yeah.
And
I think I've seen recently with a lot of athletes that they're getting very educated themselves, and you start to see people who feel benefits. So they have an Achilles tendinopathy and they feel benefits from some heavy loading or isometric loading or whatever in season, and so they start to do it every day and twice a day and 3 times a day. You think too much, maybe?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to do it properly, they should be too hard to do every day. he should almost treat you like interval training. You wouldn't do interval training every day, or if you are, you're doing something wrong. So if you're in pre-season, look, if you're reasonably sound strength and plyometric base, like twice a week is probably enough. And if you're in season with games each week, once a week, just doing 2 or 3 sort of key exercises is probably enough to get you through, 8 to 10 weeks, depending on, I suppose, your baseline. Mm-hmm. But just getting the timing of it right and the dosage right. Mm-hmm. And get to the point where you've done your preseason work and you've loaded up in advance that you only need to just do maintenance work when you're at that sort of peak of your season.
Yeah, because you're still stressing the area, and you're starting to stress the area before training, after training, and every single day.
No, I wasn't saying that. Some people might benefit, and again, the research is a bit mixed on this, but anecdotally, some people do benefit from doing some moderate intensity, long duration isometric holds as part of the warm up to get some analgesic effect, whatever the mechanism is there. So if someone tried it and they find they can go about their session and be fairly pain free, I certainly bring that into the program. That can be done a bit more often. So that's not going to stress the system as much. But if you're doing your really short, heavy isometrics or eccentrics or whatever else, that is a bit more of a stress in the body, and not something you want to be doing every day or multiple times a day.
My thoughts on the analgesic effect there before training, and this is this is just because I had Achilles tendinopathy and patellar tendinopathy, very nasty actually, and my thoughts on that were actually when I went out and trained, if I didn't do my isometrics beforehand, I would still get the analgesic effect just from warming up anyway for 5 minutes, which is just going for a jog. So it's going to kick in eventually. But it got to a stage where the pain, I didn't want to feel that when I started my warm up. So I would do my isometrics in the dressing room beforehand, and actually I felt a bit better going out there from the beginning, and maybe there was some kind of activation that started to occur and was helpful throughout that training session. Versus when, and this could be completely wrong, and it probably is, but versus when I actually warmed up in pain, it felt like maybe my mechanics or my gait or my body was a little bit afraid of that for the whole training session versus but it was less muscle activation throughout. But I obviously I don't know, and you can't measure it.
No, it makes sense. If you're warming up for a big game or for training and it's at a critical time of the season, you certainly don't want to be dealing with pain in the back of your mind. It's going to have a little bit of an impact there. So I suppose if you could deal with that before your warm up, and I suppose the warm up is very much a personal thing. So there's no hard and fast rules about it. It's whatever makes you feel good doing the activity you want to do. So so I suppose everyone has their own little individual strategy, or some people do. So if someone finds that it works, even if it doesn't make complete sense, whatever it may be, if it's placebo, by all means do it. You'll hopefully do no harm.
Can I ask you why Achilles and calf? Why did you get so interested in that? Because I know you're a walker, obviously.
Yeah.
But I imagine there's not too many. I could be wrong. I don't know very little about the sport, but I imagine there's not too many calf and Achilles injuries.
Not so much, no. I had maybe 1 or 2 Achilles issues in the past. Might have had one certain Achilles tendinopathy when I was really young, now maybe about 19, 20, but it wouldn't be a common injury in race walking. Be a lot more tibanta, a nasty tibialis anterior tendinopathy 1 year, which kept me for 3 months on and off. Hamstrings, hip and groin area would take a lot more load. So when I started working in the clinic almost 9 years ago, dealing a lot with running injuries, and would have seen a lot of different types of calf injuries, a lot of kind of exertional type calf pain that maybe 10 or 15 years ago would have been classified as compartment syndrome, but that's not the case now, because even the test to do that is not ideal. So tend to be just people with poor calf condition or poor calf capacity and overloading them, and they usually do respond quite well. Most of them would respond quite well to to modified load and building up calf capacity. Obviously there's a few outliers who don't, that's when you have to sort of delve a little bit deeper. But that kind of got me interested in the role of the calf and running. And at the same time, I just retired from race walking around that time, and I was doing a bit of running to keep fit, and then I suppose got a bit more competitive at my own level. So got more of an understanding of the role of the calf in running, and I suppose Achilles tendon stiffness in terms of and its role in its relationship to running economy. And I also then was seeing a few Achilles tendinopathies, doing quite well with them, and I suppose generated a bit of an interest in them, and I suppose took off from there. And then I suppose when I was finished my master's, I started thinking more towards my PhD proposal, and it was kind of Achilles tendon focused. So,
how was your transition from walking to running?
A lot more relaxed. Obviously, when I was race walking, I was training full time. It was, there's bigger things at stake. Whereas initially, I suppose I retired at 31, so just quite young. So, just wanted to keep fit. I was always active anyway. So, but I just found it hard to go out for a run without having to focus. So I missed that sort of competitive, the competitiveness. So, so I had to sort of target a 5K or a 10K, and then ultimately started targeting one marathon a year. And then now I aim to do sometimes when I can, twice 2 marathons a year. But like the training is a lot more relaxed, a lot more to juggle at home too. But no, I enjoy it. I suppose curious to see what I can do with the time and I have, over the next year or two before the things I suppose take over. But
gait wise, did you have to make like any conscious kind of changes to?
Look, I suppose I used to be stuck to the ground, so I suppose definitely my plyometrics, I did a lot of work on that, and hopefully I've got some carryover into running, and then obviously a bit more focus on calf strength over the years. So if I was to look at myself running back in 2014 versus now, I'm sure there's a bit of a difference. Even people would have commented that just on my running gait that it was quite low. Someone maybe just mentioned that it looked like a triathlete who just come off a bike, or I didn't have an Ironman or whatever. So had that sort of heavy sort of awkward look. But anyway, it's only so much I can change now. But
your body is just programmed to move. You've done so many hours moving in one way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. One last question, actually.
Sure.
Is there any research out there or any thoughts on Achilles specifically, maybe calf as well, but people who maybe hit the gym and do a lot of put on a decent amount of muscle and start to pick up tendinopathy, Achilles issues, calf issues, anything like that, or like even body weight, someone is a little bit heavier than they should be?
Well, there's two different things there. If someone has a well-developed muscle more so than a well-developed tendon, that is an issue. And I suppose it's relevant. There's been some good studies done in Germany on adolescent volleyball players who develop patella tendinopathy. Obviously, jumping type sports would be a hotspot for that. And when you go to adolescence and you get big development or more rapid development of muscles, more so than tendon, that can predispose some people to patella tendinopathy. So in terms of calf and Achilles, one of the biggest blind spots, I suppose, is the research now is kind of pointing towards there's an optimal level of tendon strain, like between 4.5% and 7%, where the tendon, which is the ideal conditions for the tendon to get stiffer and to adapt positively. And it's finding the right amount of muscle force to hit that strain. So some people might be super strong, and when they're doing calf work, they may overshoot it. Some people might be strong enough and might be able to get that 4.5 or 5% strain and mightn't be able to get the stimulus. So I think the next step, I suppose, for me post PhD is to be able to profile someone to know how much muscle force they need from the calf to get that sort of optimal level of strain. So yes, I think if you can nearly be too strong for your tendon, and when you're doing calf work, be getting maybe strains of maybe 9 or 10%, which might be ideal for getting positive adaptations. And then I suppose if someone is, the flip side, if someone is maybe has high, maybe poor body composition, maybe on the obese side of things, there's other factors then you got to take into account, whole body factors. So tendons are, it's like an organ, it's sensitive to other things going on in the body. So if someone is predisposed to, poor regulation of blood sugars, maybe has a history of, cardiovascular disease in their family, any sort of inflammatory disease, that they're especially in older people who may be past the age of 30, that's when those sort of whole body factors or conditions can also be a player in developing tendinopathy, and that might need a broader approach. But you're probably thinking more the older athlete or maybe the less athletic people of sort of middle age or getting into middle age.
It's really interesting. Very, very interesting. Any supplementation for tendinopathies? I know you probably get asked that all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean the research is still a little bit limited, but I would maybe encourage people to supplement with collagen and vitamin C. As it certainly will do no harm. It might have a small effect in theory, and I suppose if they're on top of their protein intake throughout the day as well. And then I mean, there's one good study actually in British Athletics where they looked at their athletes on their program who had tendinopathies and looked at their blood profile, and a lot of them were deficient in magnesium. So there might be something in that. And obviously zinc, well, when you're trying to adapt a tendon to normal load or to rehab, you have a lot of enzyme reactions going on, and zinc is an important mineral to support enzyme reactions. So maybe supplement with zinc as well during periods of tendon load when you're trying to get positive responses might do no harm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant. Colin, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I know it was a messy podcast because I just peppered you with questions. I actually said before it's not like an interviewee style, but actually it's allowed to be because I value your work and everything you're doing a lot. So I really appreciate you making the time to come on and being just doing some great work out there. So I think it's going to be huge, and I'm looking forward to seeing your journey as you go on, and obviously as your research is released and stuff. So thank you so much.
No, thanks so much, David, for having me on. I enjoyed the conversation, and hope you have a great Christmas.
Is there anywhere that you would like people to go to check you out, find you, Twitter, Instagram, website, anything like that?
Yeah, no, I suppose the main ones, my Twitter handle is my name, so at Colin Griffin, and my Instagram is at Colin Griffin 50k, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, so they'd be the main three.
Okay.
I have a website as well, colingriffin.e, but it's a bit basic at the moment, so hopefully do a bit more with that next year, maybe, and hopefully share more useful stuff.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward to it. Okay, I'll put all those links in the show notes for everyone, and they can check it out. So, Colin, thank you so much. Hey everyone, David here again. I hope you really enjoyed the episode with Colin. I thought it was brilliant. Gave me lots to think about, cleared up a few things in my head. So I want to say thanks to Colin for coming on, and obviously thanks to everyone else for listening. If you liked it, maybe you can give it a share for us. And then one last thing, if you like learning about biomechanics, you don't maybe have a ton of time, but you have 10-15 minutes every week, then that's where we have 830 coaches and therapists, just movement professionals who are interested in learning about biomechanics, rehab, strength training. We have a full foot and ankle and Achilles and calf section there that kind of digs into the biomechanics of the feet, the gait cycle, pronation and supination practicals, what I would do to get with my clients to get like their heel moving better, their midfoot moving better, ankle rehab. These are all just short, sharp videos, 10-15 minutes long, super designed to be super practical. You can take the information away straight away, train your coach's eye, use the stuff with your clients, and hopefully at the end of the day, just get better results for them and enjoy your work a little bit more as a result. So TGR Interactive, the link is in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate Colin coming on. And I will hopefully have another great episode, maybe next week or whatever. And chat to you guys soon.